Okay, I want to do a quick little lesson right now, and that deals with something called molar mass. So we've already seen what the mole is, and we've seen what formula mass is. And really what we're doing is we're putting the two concepts together. We're putting the idea of a formula mass, which is the mass of one of the small entities, along with the mole, which is that large group of entities, in order to create what we call the molar mass. So let's define what a molar mass is. You can write this down. This is the mass in grams of 1 mole of a particular substance. So we're talking about this thing called the mole. Remember, the mole is this large number of things. Remember, it's 6.02 times 10 to the 23 entities, right? And that can be molecules or atoms or formula units. It's a really large number of these entities. And if we have a large number of molecules, you can imagine that's going to weigh, it's going to weigh something. It's going to weigh something that we can measure in the lab. And this is going to actually turn out to be grams, which we can weigh on a scale. So the molar mass is defined as being the mass in grams of 1 mole of a particular substance. So, excuse me, let's bring up the rest of this little note here. So if we're going to be doing calculations, we're going to need some symbols to recognize these things. And we're going to use the symbol MM to represent molar mass. 2 capital M's makes good sense, molar mass. Now the unit for the molar mass, you can see kind of comes from the definition. It's the number of grams, and there it is there, per 1 mole of a substance over moles. So the unit, we say, is grams per mole, all right? So again, this is the mass of 1 mole, a large group of entities of a particular substance. To calculate it is much easier than you would expect. So here we're going to do some examples. Again, just write EG. Don't necessarily write complete the following chart with the following substances. We're going to look at how we do the formula mass first, and then we will look at how to do the molar mass. So we have already seen how to do a formula mass, right? I like the formula written down and then the arrow underneath. And if I check my periodic table, we will see that O2, well, that 1 O has a mass of 16. And because I've got 2 O's, I'm going to multiply it by 2. So we put that together and we get 32.0. And remember, the unit is U, atomic mass units. So this is the mass of 1 molecule, right? This is a small mass, right? There's not much there. It's just 1 molecule, all right? And I can't really weigh 1 molecule. But what if I had a mole of these molecules? What would its mass be? Well, it turns out that we calculate the molar mass the exact same way as we calculate the formula mass, 16.0. There's 2 of these O's. Again, I add them up, 32.0. But the difference now is the unit. This is in grams. 1 mole of a substance, it turns out, has a mass that's exactly the same as the formula mass, except it's in grams. And that's for 1 mole, so we write the unit grams per mole. So molar mass is easy. We do it exactly the same way as we did the formula mass, except now we have a new unit, grams per mole, all right? We actually will not be using the formula mass anymore because that's not a real useful thing, because we never talk about just 1 molecule. It's more convenient to talk about a mole of molecules. So if I take a look at this nickel 3 sulfate and I2SO4 bracket 3, I'm going to have 16. Remember, 3 times 4, I've got to multiply that out. That's 12 of those oxygen atoms. I'm going to have to check my sulfur here, so I'm checking my periodic table. That's 32.1 to 1 decimal place, and that's times 3, because that 3 also has to multiply by that sulfur there. And down here, I got to check the nickel, and nickel is 58.7, 58.7, and that is times 2. All right. So if I get my calculator now, you'll have to be patient. I'm calculating 16 times 12 plus 32.1 times 3 plus 58.7 times 2 equals, and that gets me a number of 405.7. Because this is a formula mass, this is U. But in order to get the molar mass, I would do the same calculation. I would do it exactly the same, and I would add up all those elements, and I'm not actually going to do it because the calculations here are the same as the calculations there. I would get 405.7, but now I write grams per mole. So the only difference in formula mass and molar mass are the units. And there I'm highlighting them there. So when you're asked to do a molar mass, you don't need to do this step. You don't need to do this. You'll just do this and write grams per mole. Okay, so now you can go ahead and you can complete the little practice sheet that's on Google Classroom on molar mass.